My watermelon pie recipe is easy and delicious. Made with Jell-O and Cool Whip, it's a perfectly cool, creamy, and refreshing dessert that's awesome on a hot summer day. Let's go over the ingredients. For a 9-inch pie, you will need 1 3-ounce box of watermelon flavored Jell-O, 1 9-ounce container of Cool Whip or other frozen topping, thawed, 2 cups of chopped watermelon. For me, it was 370 grams. This was seeded watermelon, so I was really careful about removing the seeds, but you can use seedless if you want. And you will also need a 1/4 cup of liquid for the gelatin. You could use a 1/4 cup of water, but I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of water and 1 tablespoon of lime juice. You really only need those ingredients, but if you want to take this pie to the next level, then you could also add 1 teaspoon of lime zest, a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, and a dash of salt. I have my 9-inch graham cracker crust off to the side. Of course, I'm using homemade. If I remember, I will include the link to that recipe video in the description box. But of course, you can use a store-bought crust or your own recipe. This watermelon pie is super easy. The first step is just heating the water in the microwave. So I am going to take my 1 tablespoon of lime juice and put it into my 3 tablespoons of water. Now I'm going to put this into the microwave on high, covered, for about 45 seconds, maybe 1 minute, until it's hot, and then I'm going to use it to dissolve the Jell-O. My water just came out of the microwave. I covered it and put it in on high for 45 seconds. It's steaming, not sure if you can see that, so it's definitely hot. Now I'm just going to take the Jell-O powder, empty it into this bowl. Now I'm just going to take the hot liquid and pour it in and mix to dissolve. One thing I wanted to point out is that I am not following the directions on the back of the Jell-O box. If I'm not mistaken, it calls for 2 cups of liquid total. I'm definitely not doing that. I'm only using 1/4 cup. So make sure you keep that in mind. You're not following the directions on the box for the gelatin. You are following the directions for my recipe. So I am going to let this cool off a little bit. As you can see, all the powder is dissolved. I'm gonna let it cool off about 10 to 15 minutes before I fold in the Cool Whip and the watermelon. But while I'm waiting for it to cool down, I'm going to take my pie crust and I'm going to sprinkle in some of the extras. First off, just a little bit of salt to help balance out the flavors. Some ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon. A lot of smoothie recipes that have watermelon also have ginger. And I think that ginger and watermelon will combine very nicely in this recipe. But if you really like ginger, you could do 1/2 teaspoon. Now for the lime zest, I'm just gonna sprinkle this in on the bottom. Like I said, 1 teaspoon, the zest of 1 lime. I might sprinkle a little more lime zest on top right when I serve. I will let you know what I decide to do. It's been 10 minutes since I dissolved the Jell-O. It's starting to thicken, so it is time to fold in the Cool Whip and the watermelon. Start with the watermelon. It's going to fold it in, and by fold I mean not moving the spatula like this. I mean taking the spatula down to the bottom and then bringing it up to the top. With the watermelon, it's probably not as big of a deal, but when we get to the Cool Whip, you definitely want to fold instead of stir. There we go. Now for the Cool Whip. Use the spoon. Like I said earlier, folding in the whip topping is really important. Instead of going like this, take your spatula down to the bottom and then turn it up to the top like this. Taking from the bottom and turning it up to the top, the bottom up to the top. Folding in ingredients is really important when you have varying densities. So we have this light and airy Cool Whip, but we have a liquid that we want to stir it into. Honestly, if you just stirred it, it would probably be okay. But if you want to minimize the amount of deflation in the whip topping or other fluffier ingredient, most chefs will tell you it is better to fold than stir normally. Just take your spatula to the bottom or a large spoon and then bring it to the top like this. From the bottom to the top. Feel free to move the bowl around if needed. Make sure you really dig your spatula or spoon really deep into the bowl, because as you can see, it looks like I was stirring everything together, but I have found some whip topping that is almost pure white still. So you don't want that. You want to make sure everything is nicely combined. And I bet at the beginning you thought, oh, that's not going to mix together. It looks like the Cool Whip is breaking apart, but just don't worry, be patient. Even though in the beginning it looks like maybe this recipe was ruined, it is definitely not. Now I'm going to pull over my graham cracker crust. I'm just going to pour in the topping. And once it's in, I'm going to smooth it out. Now I'm going to stick this into the refrigerator. I am going to leave it there for probably 3 to 4 hours until it sets. I'm not going to cover mine because I don't want the crust to get soggy. But if you have one of those store-made crusts that come with a top, you could probably put it over for a couple hours and it's probably not going to make that much difference. I might not get to this until tomorrow, so that's why I am not covering mine. I let my watermelon pie chill in the refrigerator for 4 hours, and now I'm going to serve it. But before I do, I'm going to sprinkle the zest of 1 lime. So maybe we'll say half a teaspoon of lime zest on top, just for a little bit of extra color. This is definitely not needed, but I think it is going to look nice. After chilling in the refrigerator overnight, it was time to serve my pie. But before I did, I sprinkled the top with a little bit of lime zest to give it some extra color. As you can see, it looked irresistible, so I couldn't wait to dig in. And when I cut the first slice and took the first bite, I knew that my watermelon pie recipe was a big success because it was absolutely delicious. First off, the flavor. This pie definitely tasted like watermelon, but I have to admit that the watermelon flavor maybe wasn't quite as strong as I was expecting it to be. It was more of a watermelon and cream flavor profile. Honestly, I think that most of the flavor actually came from the watermelon Jell-O, the little pieces of watermelon playing a supporting role, adding a little bit of extra flavor in the bites where they were present. The lime was a nice addition as well. It added something in the background in the bites where it was present, but I would say the second strongest flavor besides the watermelon was definitely the cinnamon flavored graham cracker crust. I picked up on the ginger as well, just very slightly. And honestly, I'm glad that I used the amount of ginger that I did. I thought, as I expected, it was a nice touch to the background, but I wouldn't want to add too much so that it wouldn't compete with the watermelon. The flavor aside, this dessert had a really nice texture. Now that I've cut the first slice and I'm holding it up to the camera, you can see just how soft and pillowy the filling was. It contrasted very nicely with the crispy, crunchy graham cracker crust underneath, the combination of textures working together very well. I like the bits of watermelon in the filling as well, but honestly, part of me thinks that maybe leaving those out and having the filling just be a watermelon flavored cream might have been better. In regards to the aesthetics, I liked how this pie looked. The cream filling, the graham cracker crust definitely had an old-fashioned southern look. However, in hindsight, now part of me wishes that I would have added a little bit of red food coloring, because even though the light pink color was nice, as you can see now that I'm placing the pie next to some cut watermelon, the color of the pie is a lot lighter than the color of the fruit. So like I said, I think a little bit of red food coloring might have helped recreate the image of a watermelon slice. Now I'm wondering if there might be a way to recreate the green rind with a green colored crust, or maybe add some raisins or something like that to the filling to represent seeds. So if anyone has some ideas, let me know in the comment section below. Overall, I think that my no-bake watermelon pie recipe with graham cracker crust was a success. It was easy to make, it tasted good, it definitely turned out well. However, I do have to admit that the watermelon flavor was not as strong as I was expecting, but in all honesty, I think that watermelon is a difficult fruit to translate into a pie because it's so watery. It's not like a strawberry or a peach. So considering that watermelon is very watery and the texture is different from other types of fruit, this was definitely a really good pie. It's just not what you might be expecting if you're used to other types of desserts. But as long as you have that in mind, this is delicious. It's really refreshing on a hot summer day, so you should definitely give it a try. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.